Every species in the galaxy knew the rule. Every single one. It was carved into the memory banks of 1,000 civilizations, whispered in the dark corners of space stations, and programmed into the neural implants of every military commander worth their salt. Don't wake the humans. Simple, right? 4 words. Even a brain-dead Globarian could understand it. But apparently Commander Klaxon of the mighty Zephyrian Empire thought he was special. Oh, how wrong he was about to be. The Galactic Council had been very clear about this particular species from the 3rd planet of an unremarkable yellow star. They sleep, Elder Prism had announced during the last Universal Assembly, his crystalline voice echoing through the chamber. Let them sleep. Forever, if possible. Of course, the Zephyrians had laughed. Actually laughed. Can you believe it? Here were beings who had conquered 17 star systems, who wielded plasma cannons that could melt entire moons, and they were supposed to be afraid of some hairless primates floating around in metal cans? Primitive, Klaxon had scoffed to his officers. He looked at their ships. Crude chemical propulsion. Basic fusion reactors. They don't even have proper shield generators. He gestured dismissively at the holographic display showing the human colony vessels drifting through the void like sleeping giants. The council grows soft. These creatures are barely more advanced than the insects we step on. Admiral Vortex, his second in command, had shifted uncomfortably in his biosuit. Sir, the warning came from every major civilization. Even the Andromedans agreed, and they disagree with everything. The Andromedans are cowards, Klaxon had snorted. Always have been. Mark my words, Vortex, these humans will make excellent workers. Imagine the labor force we could gain. Millions of them, just floating there, waiting to serve the Empire. The human colony ships continued their silent drift through space, their occupants locked in cryogenic sleep, completely unaware that their fate was being decided by a bunch of aliens who clearly hadn't paid attention during their history lessons. If they had, they might have remembered what happened to the last species that decided to wake the humans. But then again, the Zephyrians were never particularly good students. They preferred the direct approach, the violent approach. The approach that was about to teach them why some rules exist for very, very good reasons. In the depths of those sleeping ships, millions of humans dreamed their frozen dreams, their hearts beating once every few minutes, their minds storing up energy for whatever awaited them when they opened their eyes again. They had no idea they were about to become the galaxy's biggest nightmare, or that some idiot with too much pride and not enough brains was about to make the worst decision in interstellar history. 3 solar cycles later, Klaxon's war fleet stumbled across them. 7 massive human colony ships, each one the size of a small moon, drifting through the Kepler Nebula like sleeping whales. The Zephyrian sensors lit up like festival lights. Sir, Lieutenant Nexus called from his station, his tentacles quivering with excitement. We've got positive identification. Human vessels. Registration indicates they're from Earth. Klaxon's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his species. How many life signs? Approximately 12 million, sir. All in deep cryogenic sleep. The bridge fell silent. Even the ship's atmospheric processors seemed to hold their breath. General Vex, the fleet's oldest warrior, cleared his throat with a sound like grinding metal. Commander, Vex said carefully, perhaps we should consult the Council protocols. The warnings about this species were quite specific. Klaxon spun around, his 4 eyes blazing with indignation. Protocols? We're the Zephyrian Empire. We don't follow protocols written by frightened bureaucrats. We make our own rules. But sir, Admiral Vortex interjected, the Universal Database shows multiple civilizations have had difficulties with humans. The Rigel Confederation, the Tau Ceti Alliance. Propaganda. Klaxon slammed his armored fist against the command console, excuses made by weak species to justify their failures. Look at those ships, officers. Do you see weapons? Do you see shields? Those vessels are nothing more than flying coffins filled with primitive mammals. Lieutenant Nexus pulled up the tactical display. Sir, their technology is indeed basic by our standards, No energy weapons detected. Hull composition appears to be simple titanium alloys. Their propulsion systems are quaint. Exactly. Klaxon's voice rose to a triumphant screech. 12 million workers, just waiting to serve the Empire. Think of the mining operations we could establish. The construction projects. These creatures will build us monuments that will last 10,000 years. General Vex tried one more time. Commander, with respect, the Council specifically stated that humans should remain undisturbed. The penalties for violating this directive are meaningless if the Council never finds out, Klaxon finished coldly. Besides, once they see the productivity gains from our new workforce, they'll thank us. Probably give us medals. Oh, the irony. If only someone had recorded that statement for posterity. Prepare the awakening protocols, Klaxon commanded. Full neural stimulation. I want every human conscious within 6 standard hours. Sir, Vortex said weakly, shouldn't we at least follow first contact procedures? Diplomatic channels? Klaxon laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Diplomacy is for equals, Admiral. These are soon to be slaves. Wake them up, put them to work, and let's start building our empire. The orders went out across the fleet. Boarding pods launched toward the human ships. Zephyrian technicians began interfacing with human systems, preparing to flood the colony vessels with wake-up chemicals. Not one of them bothered to read the warning labels on the human ships. Not one of them noticed the subtle modifications to what should have been standard colony vessel designs. And absolutely none of them wondered why a species supposedly so primitive had managed to launch 12 million colonists across interstellar space in the first place. They were about to find out. The first thing Captain Maya Torres felt was the burning sensation in her lungs as the cryo-fluid drained from her pod. The second thing was the taste of copper and regret in her mouth. The third thing was the very distinct feeling that something had gone horribly, terribly wrong. Status report, she croaked, her voice barely a whisper as the revival drugs coursed through her system. Captain, came a familiar voice from the adjacent pod. Engineer Jake Morrison was already pulling himself upright, his dark skin still pale from the long sleep. We're not supposed to be awake yet. Not for another 73 years. Around them, the colony ship New Angeles was filled with the sounds of 12,000 people experiencing the worst hangover in human history. Alarms blared. Emergency lights bathed everything in hellish red, and through the observation windows, Maya could see ships that definitely weren't human. Well, came a voice that sounded like someone gargling gravel mixed with condescension. The primitives are finally awake. Maya turned to see something that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and an overgrown shrimp, wearing what appeared to be high-tech armor covered in blinking lights. Behind it stood several more creatures, each one uglier than the last. I am General Vex of the Zephyrian Empire, the creature announced. You are now property of the Empire. You will work, you will obey, you will serve. Jake slowly stood up, swaying slightly. Property. I'm sorry, but I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Silence. Vex screeched. Your primitive species lacks the intelligence for complex thought. You will perform manual labor under Imperial supervision. Maya had to bite her lip to keep from laughing. She caught Jake's eye and saw the same barely contained amusement there. Around the revival bay, other humans were waking up, and she could see the same look of incredulous disbelief spreading across their faces. Of course, Maya said, adopting what she hoped was a suitably confused expression. Manual labor. We understand. We're just simple humans, after all. Good, Vex said, apparently missing the sarcasm entirely. Your first assignment will be mining operations on asteroid Gamma 7. Your crude physiology should be adequate for such basic tasks. Oh, absolutely, Jake nodded earnestly. We're very good at basic tasks. That's definitely what we're known for. Dr. Elena Santos, the ship's chief medical officer, stumbled over to join them. Excuse me, she said in a sweet, innocent voice, but could you explain how your technology works? We've never seen anything so advanced. Maya had to admire Elena's acting skills. The woman had 3 PhDs in xenobiology, quantum mechanics, and applied physics, but she was staring at the Zephyrian equipment like it was magic. Vex preened visibly. Your primitive minds could never comprehend imperial technology. These are plasma conduits, quantum processors, gravitic manipulators. Wow, Elena breathed. So complicated. I bet it would take us forever to understand even the simplest parts. While Vex continued his condescending explanation, Maya noticed something interesting. The other humans weren't panicking. They weren't crying or begging or doing any of the things you'd expect from a helpless captive population. Instead, they were listening, watching, learning. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, their tactical officer, was apparently fascinated by the aliens' weapons. "Those are really impressive energy rifles," she said with wide-eyed wonder. "I bet they're super complicated to operate." "Incredibly complex," the alien guard boasted. "It requires superior Zephyrian intellect to properly calibrate the plasma matrix." "I'm sure it does," Sarah agreed, while her eyes catalogued every detail of the weapon's design. Maya had to hand it to her crew. Within the first hour of contact, they'd already begun the most important intelligence-gathering operation in human history. And the aliens thought they were too stupid to understand what was happening. This was going to be fun. "Well," Maya said, stretching as if she were still working out the kinks from cryo-sleep, "when do we start this manual labor? We're so eager to serve the Empire." If Vex had been capable of recognizing sarcasm, he might have lived longer. 3 weeks into their captivity, the humans had settled into what the Zephyrians believed was a routine of docile labor. The aliens had separated the colonists across different mining facilities, thinking this would prevent organized resistance. What they didn't realize was that they'd just distributed the most dangerous problem-solving network in the galaxy across their entire operation. Dr. Luna Park, the fleet's xenobiologist, had been assigned to the simple task of sorting mineral samples on mining platform Beta. The Zephyrians thought her constant note-taking was just primitive record-keeping. They had no idea she was documenting every weakness in their biology, technology, and tactical procedures. "Fascinating," Luna muttered, pretending to struggle with a basic scanner while actually reverse-engineering its quantum resonance patterns. "These readings don't make sense to my simple human brain." Supervisor Kletch, a particularly arrogant Zephyrian, scuttled over on his 6 legs. "Of course they don't, primitive. Your species lacks the neural complexity to understand quantum mechanics." "You're so right," Luna agreed, while mentally calculating the exact frequency needed to overload their scanner network. "Could you show me again how this works? I'm just so confused." Meanwhile, back on the main asteroid, engineer Jake Morrison was having his own breakthrough. The Zephyrians had tasked him with maintaining their foolproof mining equipment, apparently not realizing that humans had invented half the underlying principles centuries ago. "Oops," Jake said loudly as another drilling platform mysteriously malfunctioned. "Sorry, I must have pressed the wrong button again." The Zephyrian overseer, Lieutenant Grax, threw up his arms in exasperation. How can a species this incompetent have achieved spaceflight? Beginner's luck? Jake suggested helpfully, while internally cataloging the exact sequence needed to trigger a cascade failure in their entire mining network. But the real masterstroke was happening in the communication arrays. The aliens had given the humans access to their basic maintenance systems, thinking primitive minds could handle simple cleaning duties. They didn't realize that Captain Maya Torres had been a communications specialist before becoming a colony commander. "I don't understand," Maya said to Communications Officer Riley Chen as they cleaned the quantum transmission hub. "These signals keep getting crossed. It's like our cleaning cloths are interfering with the equipment." "Very strange," Captain Riley agreed, while secretly documenting the exact specifications of every piece of Zephyrian technology they encountered. "Maybe we should clean it differently?" "Good idea. Let's try this pattern." What the aliens registered as random cleaning movements was actually Maya's crew systematically mapping their entire network infrastructure. Every hub, every relay, every backup system. The Zephyrians were so convinced of human stupidity that they never bothered to monitor what their cleaners were actually doing. Dr. Elena Santos had made perhaps the most crucial discovery of all. While tending to injured workers in the medical bay, she'd noticed something interesting about Zephyrian physiology. Commander Torres, she whispered during one of their carefully orchestrated accidental meetings, their exoskeletons have a resonance frequency, approximately 47.3 terahertz. Maya's eyes widened. The same frequency as our industrial sonic cleaners? Exactly. And there's more. Their neural implants use a quantum entanglement system. If we could generate the right interference pattern, we could scramble their entire command network, Maya finished. The beautiful thing about the human resistance was its apparent randomness. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a series of unrelated accidents caused by incompetent workers. Mining equipment broke down. Communication systems experienced mysterious glitches. Transport vehicles developed unexplained mechanical problems. Perhaps we overestimated their capabilities, General Vex complained to Commander Klaxon during one of their daily briefings. These humans can barely operate our simplest machines without breaking them. Primitive neural architecture, Klaxon agreed dismissively. Their brains simply lack the sophistication for complex tasks. Though I admit the frequency of accidents is becoming irritating. If only they had realized that every accident was actually a carefully orchestrated intelligence-gathering operation. Every malfunction provided the humans with crucial data about Zephyrian technology. Every mistake brought them one step closer to understanding exactly how to bring down an empire. In the depths of Mining Platform Alpha, Tactical Officer Sarah Kim was putting the finishing touches on what would become known as the most audacious military strategy in galactic history. "All right, everyone," she whispered to the assembled resistance leaders during their lunch break. "We've got 3 weeks of intelligence data. Their technology, their weaknesses, their communication protocols. Are we ready to show these arrogant bugs why the galaxy was afraid to wake us up?" Maya Torres smiled, and for the first time since awakening, it wasn't a fake one. "Let's remind the universe why humans are dangerous." What the Zephyrians didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for 3 centuries. Not preparing for slavery, mind you, but preparing for the inevitable encounter with hostile alien intelligence. The colony ships weren't just vessels carrying sleeping farmers and engineers. They were floating laboratories, military academies, and strategic think tanks all rolled into one. And at the center of it all was Marcus Webb, a man whose official title was agricultural specialist, but whose real job was something the Zephyrians could never have imagined. "Attention all units," Marcus whispered into his primitive communicator during what appeared to be a routine maintenance check. "Operation Wasp's Nest is a go. Repeat, the nest is active." Across 17 different mining platforms, asteroid stations, and orbital facilities, humans who had been playing the role of confused primitives suddenly became something else entirely. They became the most terrifying force in the galaxy, a unified human military operating with complete tactical surprise. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity and absolutely terrifying in its execution. Phase 1, the Comedy Hour. Dr. Luna Park activated the sonic resonance frequency she'd calibrated to match Zephyrian exoskeleton structure. But instead of using it as a weapon, she broadcast it through the facility's entertainment system at precisely 47.3 terahertz. The effect was immediate and hilarious. Every Zephyrian in the facility began vibrating uncontrollably, their exoskeletons humming like tuning forks. They couldn't move, couldn't coordinate, couldn't even speak coherently. They just stood there, buzzing like angry insects trapped in jars. "What's happening?" Lieutenant Grax demanded, his voice warbling comically due to the vibrations. "I don't know," Jake Morrison replied with perfectly feigned innocence. "Maybe it's a malfunction in your super-advanced systems? We're too primitive to understand what's going wrong." Phase 2, the technology takeover. While the aliens were literally shaking in their boots, Captain Maya Torres activated the network intrusion protocols her team had been secretly installing for weeks. Every cleaning session, Every maintenance check, every accidental system interaction had been building toward this moment. The humans didn't just hack the Zephyrian network. They became the network. Warning, the facility's AI announced in a distinctly human-sounding voice. All Zephyrian personnel, please report to the nearest airlock for immediate space exposure therapy. This is for your own good. That's not how our AI is supposed to sound, General Vex protested, still vibrating like a broken washing machine. Maybe your AI is evolving, suggested Dr. Elena Santos helpfully. Or maybe it's just having a bad day. Phase 3, the psychological assault. This was where human creativity truly shined. Marcus Webb had studied every piece of Zephyrian intelligence for 3 weeks, and he'd noticed something interesting. They were absolutely terrified of being perceived as inferior. Their entire culture was built on the assumption of their own superiority. So the humans decided to systematically demolish that assumption using the most devastating weapon in their arsenal, mockery. Attention, Zephyrian Empire, Marcus announced through the hijacked communication systems. This is the primitive human resistance. We'd like to thank you for the 3-week vacation. The accommodations were terrible, the food was worse, and your technology is about as advanced as our children's toys. But we appreciate the effort. Throughout the facility, humans began pulling out devices that the Zephyrians had dismissed as primitive tools. Tablet computers that suddenly displayed schematics for technology decades ahead of anything the Empire possessed. Communicators that tapped into galactic networks the Zephyrians didn't even know existed. Medical scanners that could analyze alien biology in real time and suggest 17 different ways to incapacitate each species. Impossible. Commander Klaxon sputtered through the facility's communication system. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are barely functional. Your weapons are obsolete. Oh, these old things? Sarah Kim held up what appeared to be a standard human plasma rifle. Yeah, we've been using these for mining. They're a bit outdated by our standards, but they seemed appropriate for the local technology level. She casually adjusted a setting on the weapon, and suddenly it was outputting energy levels that made Zephyrian military hardware look like water pistols. How is this possible? Vex demanded, still vibrating helplessly. Well, Maya explained with the patience of someone talking to a particularly slow child, you see. We've been spacefaring for about 800 years now. We've encountered 47 different hostile alien species. We've fought wars across 12 different galaxies. We've developed weapons that could crack planets and defenses that could withstand supernovas. But we learned something important along the way. She paused for dramatic effect. The best way to win a war is to make your enemy think you're not worth fighting. So we built our colony ships to look primitive. We dressed our soldiers as farmers and engineers. We made our weapons look like tools. And we waited for someone arrogant enough to wake us up. The terrible realization was beginning to dawn on the Zephyrians. They hadn't captured a primitive workforce. They'd awakened a sleeping military force that had been planning for this exact scenario for centuries. You wanted workers, Marcus Webb continued cheerfully. Instead, you got the most dangerous thing in the universe, humans with a plan, superior technology, and absolutely nothing left to lose. Phase 4, the demonstration. Riley Chen, the simple communications officer, activated a device that looked like a basic scanner. Suddenly, every Zephyrian weapon in the facility shut down simultaneously. Their armor stopped functioning. Their life support systems went into emergency mode. How? Klaxon whispered. Quantum entanglement overrides, Elena explained helpfully. We mapped your entire network infrastructure while you thought we were cleaning. Pretty clever for a bunch of primitives, don't you think? The humans had turned the Zephyrians' own arrogance against them. Every assumption about human inferiority had become a weapon. Every dismissive comment had provided crucial intelligence. Every moment of condescension had brought them closer to complete tactical dominance. And the most beautiful part? They'd done it all while appearing to be completely harmless. So, Maya said brightly, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Or would you prefer to find out what happens when humans stop pretending to be nice? Commander Klaxon's response was predictably arrogant and spectacularly stupid. You think your parlor tricks frighten the Zephyrian Empire? I have 17 battleships in orbit above this facility. One word from me, and they'll reduce this entire asteroid to cosmic dust. Maya Torres smiled, and this time it wasn't the fake, harmless smile she'd been wearing for weeks. This was the smile of a predator who'd just heard her prey make a threat. Oh, you mean these 17 battleships? She gestured to Jake Morrison, who held up what looked like a simple tablet computer. The screen showed the tactical display of the entire Zephyrian fleet. But something was wrong with the picture. Where there should have been 17 powerful warships, there were now 17 floating pieces of very expensive scrap metal. What have you done? Klaxon screamed, his 4 eyes bulging with panic. Well, Jake said conversationally, remember all those times your people mocked our primitive maintenance work on your communication systems? Turns out we weren't just cleaning them. We were installing some upgrades. Dr. Luna Park stepped forward, holding what appeared to be a standard Zephyrian plasma rifle. Except it wasn't standard anymore. The humans had spent 3 weeks reverse engineering alien technology and making improvements that would have taken the Zephyrians decades to develop. See, the problem with your weapons, Luna explained, is that they're designed by a species that thinks in straight lines. Very predictable. Very limited. She fired the modified weapon at a nearby wall. Instead of the expected plasma bolt, the rifle discharged a cascade of quantum-entangled particles that passed through solid matter and struck the target from 17 different angles simultaneously. Impossible, General Vex whispered, still vibrating from the sonic frequency. That technology doesn't exist. It does now, Luna replied cheerfully. We invented it while you thought we were too stupid to understand which end of the rifle was dangerous. Commander Klaxon was rapidly discovering what panic felt like. His supposedly overwhelming military advantage had evaporated in minutes. His captive workforce had revealed themselves to be the most sophisticated military operation he'd ever encountered. And worst of all, they were doing it with a sense of humor that made the entire situation feel like an elaborate practical joke. This is impossible, he kept repeating. The intelligence reports. The technology assessments. You're supposed to be primitive. Oh, we are primitive, Marcus Webb agreed. We still use kinetic weapons sometimes. We still have biological components in our computers. We even still fight wars with soldiers instead of just AI constructs. He paused, letting that sink in. The thing is, primitive doesn't mean stupid. It means we've learned to be creative with limited resources, and creativity, Commander, is something your species apparently never developed. Sarah Kim activated her tactical display, showing the real-time status of every Zephyrian facility in the system. One by one, they were falling under human control. Not through brute force, but through the kind of elegant, multi-layered strategy that could only come from a species that had been fighting impossible odds for centuries. Your mining platforms, Sarah announced, have been converted into manufacturing centers for human equipment. Your communication networks are now broadcasting our victory to every corner of the galaxy. And your precious fleet. She gestured at the tactical display, where the 17 battleships were now displaying human identification codes. He is under new management. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Zephyrians had wanted to enslave humanity for their labor. Instead, they'd handed the most adaptable military force in the galaxy a complete intelligence package, advanced technology to reverse engineer, and 3 weeks to plan the perfect counterattack. How? Klaxon demanded. How did an inferior species accomplish this? Maya Torres walked over to the defeated commander, her expression almost sympathetic. You know what your real mistake was, Klaxon? You assumed that advanced technology makes you superior. But humans learned something important during our 800 years of spaceflight. She leaned in closer. The most advanced technology in the universe is completely useless if the operator is an idiot. And with that simple statement, The Zephyrian Empire learned why the rest of the galaxy had spent centuries making sure that humans stayed asleep. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. Not because of the scale of the battle, but because of the sheer audacity of human tactical thinking. The humans didn't just defeat the Zephyrian fleet. They turned it into a teaching moment. Admiral Vortex, Maya Torres announced through the hijacked communication system, "You're about to receive a practical demonstration in human military doctrine. Please pay attention, as there will be a test afterward." From 17 different mining platforms across the asteroid belt, the humans launched their counterattack. But this wasn't the kind of conventional assault the Zephyrians expected. This was something entirely new. Dr. Elena Santos had weaponized their medical supplies. The same nanobots designed to treat human injuries in space were now reprogrammed to systematically dismantle Zephyrian technology from the inside. She launched clouds of microscopic repair drones toward the disabled fleet, where they immediately began fixing alien systems by converting them to human specifications. "What are those particles?" Admiral Vortex demanded as his flagship systems began changing around him. "Medical nanobots," Elena replied sweetly. "Don't worry, they won't hurt you. They're just giving your technology a complete makeover. Think of it as aggressive preventive maintenance." Within minutes, Zephyrian battleships were running on human operating systems, responding to human commands, and displaying helpful messages like "Welcome to Windows 2387" and "Your alien overlord license has expired." Meanwhile, engineer Jake Morrison was demonstrating the terrifying versatility of human engineering. The mining equipment the aliens had forced them to operate wasn't just being repurposed as weapons. It was being improved in real time, modified with alien technology, and combined in ways that violated several fundamental laws of physics. "Behold," Jake announced proudly, the Mark 7 asteroid redistributor. What had been a simple mining laser was now something that could crack a moon in half. The drilling platforms had become kinetic bombardment systems. The ore processors were manufacturing ammunition that didn't exist in any known database. "How is that possible?" Commander Claxon gasped as he watched a mining robot transform into what appeared to be a small but highly aggressive starship. "Modular design philosophy," Jake explained. "We build things to be adaptable. You build things to be impressive. Guess which approach works better in a crisis?" But the real masterpiece was what Marcus Webb had done with their primitive colony ships. While the Zephyrians had been focused on the mining operations, the sleeping human vessels had been quietly waking up and reconfiguring themselves. Surprise, Marcus announced as 7 massive ships appeared on the tactical display, moving with an agility that should have been impossible for vessels their size. Meet the New Angela's battle group. They've been looking forward to this conversation. The colony ships had been designed with a secret that the aliens never suspected. Every single one was actually a military vessel in disguise. The crude fusion reactors were actually contained antimatter systems. The basic hull plating was metamaterial armor that could adapt to any weapon type. The primitive sensors were quantum detection arrays that could track a single atom across interstellar space. "This is insane," General Vex protested as human ships began performing maneuvers that defied every known principle of space combat. "Ships that size can't move like that." "They can when they're not actually ships," Sarah Kim replied. "They're transforming mechanical platforms. We learned a long time ago that the best warship is one that doesn't look like a warship until you need it to be one." The Zephyrian fleet, what was left of it, found itself facing an enemy that fought according to no recognizable pattern. Human vessels would separate into smaller units, recombine into larger formations, and transform their entire configuration mid-battle. Weapons that looked like construction tools were punching through armor that had been designed to withstand supernovas. And through it all, the humans maintained their irritatingly cheerful commentary. "You know what the funny thing is?" Maya Torres asked as her ship casually disabled 3 Zephyrian cruisers with what appeared to be a modified garbage disposal unit. "We're still holding back. This is just our mining equipment and civilian vessels." You really don't want to see what happens when we deploy actual military hardware. Commander Klaxon, watching his empire's most powerful fleet being systematically dismantled by what he'd thought were primitive farming tools, he finally understood the true horror of the situation. The warnings, he whispered. The council warnings. They weren't about human strength. No, Maya agreed, almost gently. They were about human creativity. We don't just fight wars, Commander. We solve them. And you, unfortunately, have become a problem that needs solving. The last Zephyrian ship surrendered exactly 47 minutes after the humans stopped pretending to be harmless. The engagement would go down in history not as a battle, but as the most comprehensive military education ever conducted. Class dismissed, Marcus Webb announced as the alien fleet limped away. Next time, read the warning labels. The galaxy was about to learn that there was a very good reason why everyone had been so afraid to wake the humans. And that reason was now wide awake and thoroughly annoyed. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy, carried by quantum entanglement networks, subspace relays, and the oldest communication system of all, absolute terror. The Zephyrian Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in known space, had been completely dismantled by a species they'd considered primitive. Worse, it hadn't even been close. The humans had treated the entire engagement like a training exercise, complete with helpful commentary and educational demonstrations. Within 72 hours, every major civilization in the galaxy was updating their xenological databases. The entry for Homo sapiens underwent some significant revisions. Previous assessment, primitive, harmless, suitable for manual labor, read the old file. Current assessment, do not engage. Do not wake. Do not even look at them funny. The elder prism of the Galactic Council called an emergency session. His crystalline form vibrated with what might have been satisfaction, or possibly the alien equivalent of I told you so. We warned them, he announced to the assembled representatives. We specifically warned them. The rule was simple. 4 words. Even a child could understand it. Ambassador Nexus of the Rigel Confederation raised a tentacle nervously. Elder Prism, what do we do now? The humans are awake. They've demonstrated capabilities that exceed our most advanced projections. And according to our intelligence, they're expanding. It was true. The human colony ships weren't returning to their original course. Instead, they were establishing permanent settlements, building infrastructure, and most terrifyingly of all, sending out invitation signals to other human vessels that might be drifting through space. How many more of them are out there? Whispered Representative Flux from the Tau Ceti Alliance. Nobody wanted to answer that question. The official records showed approximately 400 human colony missions launched over the past 8 centuries. The unofficial estimates suggested the number might be closer to several thousand. Captain Maya Torres, now commanding what the humans cheerfully called the Neighborhood Watch, he had sent a message to the Galactic Council that was both reassuring and absolutely terrifying. To our new galactic neighbors. The message began, "Please don't panic. We're not interested in conquest, expansion, or aggressive military action. We just want to be left alone to pursue our peaceful colonization efforts. However, if anyone else decides to wake us up for unpaid labor, we'll consider it a declaration of war and respond accordingly. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day." The message was delivered with a technical specifications package that detailed exactly what responding accordingly would involve. The technology demonstrations alone were enough to give military analysts nightmares for decades. Commander Klaxon, stripped of his rank and exiled to a mining colony on the edge of Zephyrian space, spent his days writing warnings that nobody wanted to read. His memoirs, titled Why You Should Never, Ever Wake the Humans, became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. The Galactic Council updated their universal communication protocols. The new rule was broadcast to every civilization, every exploration vessel, every military force, and every foolhardy commander who might be tempted to repeat the Zephyrian mistake. The rule was no longer 4 words. It was now substantially longer and significantly more detailed. But the essence remained the same, written in letters of fire across the consciousness of every intelligent species in the galaxy. Do not wake the humans. They're not sleeping because they're tired. They're sleeping because they're being polite. And somewhere in the depths of space, in colony ships yet to be discovered, millions of humans continued their peaceful dreams, completely unaware that they had become the galaxy's most feared bedtime story. The universe had learned its lesson. Some rules exist for very good reasons, and some species are dangerous precisely because they don't look dangerous at all.